right, everybody. The Boston Celtics are heading back to the Eastern Conference Finals for the sixth time in 8 years. And here to help us all break it down and look ahead to what comes next, Richard White, Derrick's dad, is back on the show. This is Green with Envy. You guys know the deal. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today before we get to our guest that's joining us here to talk about the Boston Celtics back in the Eastern Conference Finals is my best friend, co-host, and the coach of the podcast, the one and only Greg Menakis. How you doing today, man?
I'm good. I'm super excited for this conversation. For everyone that was expecting the live stream yesterday, we apologize. Things come up. Some people get surprise tickets to the Red Sox game. Other people have torrential downpours that knock out power here in Austin, Texas. But we're here. We're here with, I'll let you do the intro, Will. You're better at the intro.
Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Richard White, making a return to the Green with Envy program here. Derrick White's dad is in the building. Richard, how are you doing today, man?
Doing great so far. Thanks for having me on again.
Well, before we get into this, we were supposed to do the live stream yesterday. Like Greg said, things come up. We had torrential downpours here in Austin, Texas. Greg and I were about to go live, and literally my power went out, my internet went out. So it was the podcast gods telling us that, it just wasn't meant to be. And that happens sometimes. But we got you here this morning. I know Greg already mentioned last night you were able to go to Fenway Park. Greg and I living in Texas now. We do like to live vicariously through some of our guests that are in the Boston area when they're there. So give us a little insights on your takeaways from last night at Fenway Park before we get into the Celtics.
No, it was fun. It's been a long time since I actually been back in Fenway, and so we got tickets and we went, and we were just like sitting there in the suite, and then we decided to walk out to the Green Monster. I'd never actually been there, so I mean the times I went, we were sitting in the right field bleachers and stuff. So it was fun experience.
What'd you think of the view from the Monster? Hopefully you don't get any type of vertigo or anything like that, because Greg and I have been up there as well. Greg's had family that used to work for the Red Sox for many years, so we were blessed to get hooked up with different tickets. But being up with that Monster, it's a really cool experience. You cannot see the left field warning track, and it is, I'm a little afraid of heights. I'll be real with you. So like I know that for me it was a little, it ended up being fine, but it could be a little touch and go. So hopefully that was a cool event for you to be up there.
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, there's even in play, and the ball, like you said, the ball gets hit out there, and you're like, well, it looks like it, but it wasn't like high enough to get up over the wall. But you have no idea, and then the ball just died on the warning track.
Yeah. So when you were in the stands, how did people respond to seeing Derrick?
Yes, that was incredible. So it's kind of really morphed as it's gone by. I mean, before, like in the town of Parker, Colorado, everybody knows him, but it's gone really crazy. So because they were in a suite and everything was okay, but when we made the trek to the wall, we were coming back. We wanted to get down on the concourse, and I get, so his mom and stuff could see some shops or something. And then that's when, he's coming back on the third base line, and it's like, uh-oh.
So were people mobbing you? I feel like Derrick, because of all the commercials that he's doing, I'd love to get your thoughts on the commercials here. I know
is he contractually obligated to walk around with the Sam Adams while you guys were doing this? Is that part of the deal?
No. We did have a Sam Adams, but it wasn't
Sam Adams on the house, right?
Yeah. So it was it was fun. So I mean, but sometimes you have to just walk through, and because it's easier if there's like isolated one or two people come up or whatever. But if you're like on the third base line, and if you kind of stop there, then it's just gonna be a mob scene. So when we were like on the outer concourses, people come up and you can take pictures and stuff. And then when we were leaving, we had some people come up and stuff. So I guess when he did the news hit, with the bobblehead or whatever, so some people kind of figured out where he was, and so then a couple people came up, but it was all good.
That's really cool. And for you, of your newfound Twitter fame, did anybody tell you that they follow you on Twitter or enjoy your account on Twitter?
No. I mean, at the game, people recognize me, and so, but at the baseball game, no, I was just a regular person.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. You don't have to have your dad hat on or your fan. You can just enjoy, hang out there and enjoy the sights and sounds. But let's transition here. Let's talk a little bit about this Boston Celtics team and about where they're at right now. As I mentioned, heading to the Eastern Conference Finals, 6th time in 8 years, third straight with Derrick being on the team. And they got a little bit of good news last night with the T-Wolves extending the series with the Nuggets to 7 games. That now pushes the start of the Eastern Conference Finals, regardless. We're recording this on Friday morning, regardless of what happens in the Knicks-Pacers Game 6. Game 1 is going to be Tuesday night at the TD Garden, which gives the Celtics a full 5 days off. Plenty of time for Al Horford to get his juice back, for KP to rest up a little bit more. Just give the guys some time to kind of get their minds right for the next series. And, Richard, I saw you tweet this out, and this is something I have harped on continuously throughout this season, is can this team learn from some of the mistakes of the last few postseasons where the earlier series went a little bit longer than maybe they should have, and you start to see the wear and tear. And I know you mentioned on Twitter that you were saying last year, just to get to round 3, took them 13 games, 6 against the Hawks, 7 against the Sixers, and really tough games too, especially in that Philadelphia series. This year, you get 2 teams that are undermanned, missing different sets of guys, and the Celtics take care of business in 5 games each, only 10 games versus that 13. Now they get those 5 games off. How important is it in your mind to, number one, just get that extra rest? And then number 2, for this team, I think this has been part of their, let's call it in air quotes here, demons, is that they haven't been able to close out series in the proper fashion. And they, you see it in the later rounds with their legs, with their energy. How important is it for them to get this done quickly as opposed to letting this drag on?
Yeah, I mean, the quicker you can get it done, 1, that means you got it done, and 2, you're not dealing with extra variables. I mean, every time you play another 40-minute game, you don't know what can or cannot happen. So the minute that you reduce the number of occurrences of something, I mean, there's 10 huge bodies running on a small subspace. I mean, anything can happen. So the quicker you can get done, the better. The more rest you can get, the better. The only drawback is, technically, if Indiana wins, then the Celtics have less days to really lock in on knowing who they're actually going to get. So I mean, it's 6-1, half a dozen of the other. But the ability to have extra rest is always welcomed. And looking forward to Tuesday on Game 1. We're gonna get well rested Al, and that if you look at the stats, well rested Al when he has more than a day's rest is it's ungodly. So that anything that puts the Celtics in a better position, they're already doing very well, and that extra rest can only help.
Definitely. And I want to talk about your son. Obviously, he came into this postseason on an absolute heater, hitting all those 3-pointers against the Miami Heat. Started off the series against the Cavs really well. And then it seemed like the Celtics kind of felt they needed to shift where the offense was running. His usage rate was in the 20s through all games in the Miami series, early in the Cleveland series. And then it dropped pretty significantly games 3 and 4. Against the Cavs. I think even game 2 it was pretty low. But then last night, and message you about this. It seemed like the Celtics really got back to featuring Derrick as both a pick and roll screener where he can go screen and he can slip out of those screens, and also as a pick and roll ball handler when they run that empty side 2-man game with him and pick a player, right? He just seems to have great chemistry with everybody when they run that empty side 2-man game. So what were your thoughts on like, how do you navigate watching your son go from the featured player back to the role player, back to the featured player? What's that roller coaster like for you?
Yeah, it's like going to a buffet restaurant. Everything's available. You can take whatever you want. Nobody can tell you what not or whatever to not take. And sometimes you can overindulge yourself on one particular entree, and so I mean, they have so many weapons, and Cleveland and other teams are going to they have to make choices. The problem is when you play the Celtics, you can make a choice, but that's not going to completely short circuit them. I mean, you could play Denver, and if you were technically able to stop Murray and Jokic, say we're just going to stop them, you know, you have a better chance of beating Denver than if you say, hey, we're going to stop Tatum and Brown, because everybody talks about starting fives, but if you do the focus where you're going to double Tatum and Brown, or you're going to, Derrick, Drew, Al, and KP, Sam, and Pritchard are open and available. They're better spot up outside 3-point shooters than anything Denver can ever amass. Now, if Denver's other guys play lights out above what their norms are, then Denver's a tough team to play.
Well,
But
if we end up going up against Denver, I feel like we have the better Holiday brother. They've got Justin, we got Drew. I feel like we got the better Holiday brother. We got to feel good about that.
I mean, but it's still the Holiday DNA. So, I mean, on the list of people that you would not want to leave open from three, I mean, the Holidays that's not a good thing. Because, I mean, yeah, that'd be interesting to have. That'd be weird. I don't know if that's ever happened, if two brothers were to actually play, in a finals series like that. But yeah, but I mean, there's like all the different other teams. I mean, Cleveland made a conscious effort after seeing the Miami series and then Game 1 that they could not let Derrick get off multiple shots free. So they decided to make that a conscious choice. And you could see on some of the plays that would have resulted normally if the defense had swung without that constraint, Derrick would have been open. But they didn't swing. And so, so Al got more shots, or Tatum Brown could drive all the way into the lane because that guy was not coming off Derrick off the corner or off the wing. So, you have to, whatever works. I mean, and then, the clincher, Derrick and Al had great games from three and whatever, and JB didn't have a whole lot of shots, whatever. At the end, it doesn't matter. The Celtics won. If the only way you can lose is if you specifically want to say X person has to score this many points and they shut off X, then your whole game plan is messed up. But if you just say, okay, that's what you decided to do, it's like the balloon with air. If you push it on one side, it blows out on the other. So, that's what makes their offense really great. You can try to take away something. And if the Celtics are okay with you taking that away and then beating you over the head with the other four, it's a math game. You're not going to win.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that is just the selflessness of this team. I think a lot of that stems from your son's play. And one of the things that Greg and I talked about in this series is, I know in Game 2, which is the one game the Celtics lost, coming out of that, we were trying to say, like, what happened? Where did we go from here? And one of the things that we highlighted, to kind of your point, is the Cavs, with a re-emphasized focus on closing out to Derrick, opens up opportunities for others. And this is where we started to look at, how do we get Drew Holiday going? And so if you look at in games, 3 and 4, and even into 5, the Celtics were a lot more intentional about getting Drew Holiday involved in the offense early, giving him some more opportunities. And you saw that play out. He had much better games 3, 4, and 5 from the offensive standpoint, shooting the ball. I know you highlighted him being in the dunker spot for several plays in game 5. And, when you look at the way that Drew and Derrick have kind of balanced each other all season, and I know that I think Drew talked about this at the end of one of the games recently, about how dynamic kind of their backcourt relationship is. What has really stood out to you throughout the season, Richard, as you're watching this? I believe you were even the one that gets credit for the stock exchange nickname between the two. So what have you watched, or what has stood out to you the most about the evolution of Derrick and Drew in that backcourt?
It was always, going in, because their age differences, they're like 4 years apart in age. I always looked and always thought, like, whenever they would talk about Drew, it was like, well, Derrick is Drew 4 years younger. So, because I always, because Drew is, accomplished, and he's like all defense. He's won a championship. He plays the game the right way. He plays hard. He can help a team. So it's like, if you want to be like Drew. And so, the fact that you have both of them, and you're utilizing both of them, that's really good, because for pretty much 48 minutes, one or the other is on the floor at all times. So you have someone that can play defense, someone who can make an open shot, someone that can make for others, and someone who doesn't really care if they get a whole lot of shots. They just care about winning. So as long as you have those kind of guys on your team, you're going to be set up for a lot of success.
And Drew has a reputation of being an unbelievable teammate. He wins awards almost every single year. Do you have any insight into what that relationship between Derrick and Drew has been like, both on and off the court?
I mean, they have the added bond. They both have a son named Hendricks, and they go about, it just works. There's a lot of respect for each other's games and what each other can do, and it kind of eases the burden, because they don't feel like they have to. I mean, because it's the NBA. There's going to be some matchups where one person can guard a person better than another, and they have 2 shots at it. So depending on who it is, and so if, like, one guy's got it going, then they take the mantle, and if the other one with the other guy has it going on defense, then they go with that. I mean, there's not a lot of pride and where everybody, oh, I got to do this. This is who I am, and I have to do that. It's like, sometimes it's just not your day, and guarding a certain player, because a certain player's skill set may fall more into the realm of something that Drew does very well, and and some maybe that Derrick does well. But that's the beauty of it. If you have both of them out there, you can rearrange your defense so that one of them is at the point of attack all the time.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question about kind of the media coverage of this team. I'm curious to get your input on it. It feels like at times you're kind of a voice of reason in the sea of Celtics Twitter, which, let's be real, it can get a little choppy out there. And we're part of that media pile too. We can also get in that mix, but it's been really fascinating, specifically this season with this team. There's a lot of history with this team. As I mentioned, this is the 6th time they're going to the conference finals in 8 years. 3rd season in a row, and really the 3rd straight season that there's been really high expectations kind of going into the season, or at least going in to the playoff run. Some of those other ones I think are kind of a separate bucket. But this year, where they've played Miami without Jimmy Butler and, Terry Rozier, Cleveland ended up having more injuries. It kind of feels like it's been, for this playoff run, damned if you do, damned if you don't within the, media narrative. Damned if you win, but if you don't win by enough or the right way, there's still an issue. And then you're damned if you don't. If you lose, it's a disaster. Everybody's losing their minds. This team's not a serious contender. I'd love to get your thoughts. And if there's any insights that you've heard from Derrick or other players, would love you to share that. But even just your thoughts on, what that's like, because you're living this with your son here on a day-to-day basis of, of intaking all of this media that's coming your way.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, just from my perspective, I mean, it's like almost where you can say things and you don't have to be accountable. So, I mean, you can have your opinion. You can say whatever. I usually base stuff off of numbers. So you put the numbers out there. The numbers are the numbers, and they've won 8 games. Nobody else has won 8 games. That's the object. Now you can put narrative spin and filter and whatever you want, but at the end of the game, they have 8. The object to get to round 3 is to have 8, and there's only one participant in there. So, I mean, a lot of the people are just, I mean, to me, it just kind of, I get it. You can have an opinion and you can come up with your, hot take or your newfound, oh my gosh, no one else can see this third eye stuff that I can see. I mean, and that's okay. But if a player goes 2 for 12, that. But if your hot takes, if we go back the whole season and your hot takes are 3 for 45, you don't have any repercussions. You just keep throwing stuff out there. I mean, it's it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't build any credibility. So if I look at you and you say, and you get 7 or 8 things correct and you miss 1 or 2, I mean, hey, no one's gonna be perfect, so everyone's gonna miss. But some of these people are missing way big time on things, and they're supposedly air quoted experts on this. I mean, it saying the Celtics aren't good when they've won 8 games, saying the Celtics aren't good because they won by over 12, 13 points per game, saying, Tatum because he doesn't do X, Y, Z, or Brown, or well, the bloom's going to fall off the rose on Derrick. Oh, Drew Holiday is not really good in the playoffs. I mean, that's all the way everybody looks at things. So the last thing I probably had was, it's always the Celtics history is, oh my gosh,
Right.
they don't do whatever. Well, the Celtics history is they've won 17 titles. So why don't we talk about, if we're going to talk about history, and they go, well, that wasn't that team. Aha, this team here, not that other team. So, I mean, your opinions and your takes fall apart if you just, look based on facts.
I love how you were just able to delineate all of the actual criticism. So you're clearly hearing the noise, which like to me tells me that like everyone is tuned into this. We always hear players talk about how, they turn off social media in the playoffs and all that. But clearly that stuff still kind of filters to the players and they hear all that noise. And I was actually talking with Will about this, but one of my coworkers who knows that I do this podcast, he always likes to talk about the Celtics with me. And he was like, man, do you feel like you're even having fun, like watching this team right now because the expectations are so high and so unfair? Where to Will's point, if we don't sweep everybody by 25 points, it's a disappointment. It's a really weird place to be in right now as a fan, because we all want to see this team just like run through everybody like a hot knife through butter, right? That's what we want to see. The reality is that everybody's a human being and they have other people with aspirations on the other side, other people with egos and pride and, self-respect, that they're not just going to lay down to the Celtics and say, you all are going to the finals. We all bow at the altar of banner 18. Like, it's just not going to happen. So what is that like for you watching the games as Derrick's dad and also, a lifelong Celtics fan? Do you feel any of the fan stuff or do you feel dad first?
Well, I mean, the first and foremost, probably the dad part first. I mean, it's each time they win, that's like, oh, it's gonna be another game that I get to watch my son play. So I mean, that's the first thing. It's like, you know, can I watch him play? Did the team win? Going down his stats or whatever, that's way on down the list. I mean, basically, if 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 he gets to play and they win, everything else is superfluous, because as long as they keep winning, then they keep playing, and as long as they keep winning, then you get to a place that everybody wants to get to. So, which is to hold the trophy, and it's not going to be easy. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be distractions. The more that they win, the more come the distractions, because
Mhm.
they won't give you credit for winning, but they'll come up with all sorts of filters on your play. Well, they won, but Tatum didn't average 30. So so would you rather have him averaging 30 like Luca and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, and one of them's going home, so that's not helping. You got Jokic and Anthony Edwards battling out. One of them's going home, so I mean that's not really going well. You can score all the points, and it does look good to people that just want to see flashy numbers or whatever. But in the end, can you win? I mean, basically, that's all that matters. I mean, who's got the highest plus minus in the playoffs? It's Al Horford. I
Yeah.
mean, remember, I mean, casual people don't know that. They just know the big names or whatever. All I know is when Al comes on the floor, the Celtics are in a better place for having him on the floor than anybody else, even on the team. So I mean, that's that's always good. You leave it better than you left it. But people will go and, like, game 4 or whatever. Garland made a couple of layups on Al, or Levert or whatever, and then everybody's like, "Oh, Al." But at the end of the day, the body of work of Al was very, very, very high.
Yeah, I mean, and especially Al in game 5, just an unbelievable throwback game for him. Got the crowd super into it, and I think, from what I've heard, the crowd has been kind of building up, and I think Al has a certain connection with the crowd. Al's been a fan favorite from, his first time here, and then certainly the return once it was so appreciated of what we had lost with Al Horford gone for those 2 years in Philly and Oklahoma City. It really made the bond stronger with, I think, the fan base. And so let's start to look ahead a little bit here. Now, we obviously don't know who the Celtics are going to play in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I'm curious to get your take here. Indiana and New York. It's 3-2 New York right now at the time of this recording. Game 6 is happening tonight, Friday night, as we record this. So, Richard, I'm curious. Do you have a preferred opponent of the two? And I'll add this in here. The fact that if it's New York, it's a pretty easy train ride, plane ride if you guys are going to go all the way back and forth to each game. So let us know. Who do you think, or who do you prefer to see come out of that Indiana New York series?
It doesn't really, matter to me. I mean, if on the scale of three things, do you want Indiana? Do you want New York? I would choose that the Celtics play up to their capabilities, because if the Celtics play Celtic ball, it doesn't really matter which one of those teams. I mean, they're both good. They both pose, interesting things. But if the Celtics rebound against New York, then that's going to be really good, because New York gets a lot of their points off of second chances, and if the Celtics can keep up with the pace and keep Indiana out of transition, then it's going to come down to who can stop who on the defensive end. And Indiana doesn't have nearly the same number of defenders, so people are going to Celtics are going to get good looks against Indiana. So either way, it is like you control what you can control. So we can't control who comes out of there. Whoever comes out of there, they'll be ready to play on Tuesday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, if Indiana forces a game seven and say New York wins game seven at home, as most people would probably expect, right? That reduces the number of games they have to rest, and they have a lot of injuries. So if New York were to win tonight, playing on Tuesday is actually really beneficial for them. But I'm rooting for Indiana to win game six, New York to win game seven, just because I want that smoke between New York and Boston. I think that'll just be fun to root for. And also I would love to see Derrick. I'd love to see Drew, and I'd like to see Jalen have the task of guarding Jalen Brunson, who's just been an absolute menace this entire playoffs. He's playing some of the best basketball historically in New York's Knicks history. So it's really like that matchup to me is one that I just want to watch selfishly as a fan. I think we have a better chance of like surely beating the Pacers just because I don't think they're necessarily ready with how young they are. But I think New York would be my preferred opponent there. What have been your takeaways watching Brunson throughout these playoffs, and how do you see a potential matchup between him and Derrick?
Brunson he's tricky. He's got good fundamentals, and you're almost kind of at the mercy of what the referees will or will not allow. So if they allow you to be physical with Brunson, which to me, I think Brunson gets officiated kind of differently, because if you watch, he'll go inside on the paint of somebody and he'll bump somebody off the spot, and they'll be like, oh, big body Brunson or whatever. But if you put any force against him on when he comes in there, then he flies back and he gets 2 free throws. So he gets the best of both worlds in that respect. But if they allow, okay, if he goes in there and he, takes Derrick into the post and he bumps him once, Derrick should get a bump back. And then after that, then it's a foul. But you can't bump, create space, and then call something back when when you go back at him, defensively. And the only thing with Brunson is you just have to, he plays the small card where on any dribble handoff or pick and roll, he just falls down and the referee's call. You watch if they were to play, that the over under would be like 10 in the series, where Brunson is going to, air quotes, get an offensive foul called against the Celtic. I mean, he takes a couple of charges, but a lot of the offensive fouls, it's like on a dribble handoff, he just runs right into the guy doing the dribble handoff and then falls down.
Yeah, and I think with both series, regardless if it's Indiana or it's New York, one of the keys for the Celtics is going to be putting both Brunson and Halliburton, just continually making them work on the defensive end, finding a way. It doesn't even necessarily directly mean you're going at them one-on-one, but putting them in actions, making them, call out screens. Like there's different ways to have them work defensively. I think that's going to be a very key component of that series. But question I have for you here, Richard, is let's take Derrick out of it for a second. Which Celtic do you enjoy watching the most? Just their style of play, their game. I'm curious to know. Obviously, Derrick's gonna be your favorite for, I think, the pretty obvious reason here. But I'm curious to know, other than Derrick, which Celtic do you enjoy watching the most?
And I don't know. That's because the fact that they're collective unit. I mean, they bought in early, and then I kind of bought in early because. Yeah, it's not like Derrick's going to do things individually. Everything that he gets is off the collective unit. JT and JB, they can go get theirs, and they can get 35 points at the drop of a hat if that was what they wanted to do. But they've done that before. I mean, we talk about the past team and the past failures. They've done the JT can go score, get buckets. But what makes this group special is the collectiveness. It's like, yeah, it's kind of like a savings thing. So you could spend that $2 and get something, but you could put it in the bank and earn interest, and that's kind of what their offense is kind of like now. Yeah, this person could do this, but if you organically just go at a team and whatever they decide they want to take away, you hit them at another spot. You always hit them at the weak spot. Basketball is a binary game. You can either be up on somebody and then they can drive, or you can be back and they can shoot a three. So, you know, you kind of basically have to go with what the other team does and then take advantage of that weakness. So, I mean,
I
I
think,
guess.
by the way, Richard, I think we're up to 3 classic Richard White metaphors on this podcast. We got the buffet, we got the interest. I can't remember the last one. There was one more though that I really liked. But I'm gonna push a little deeper here because
Okay.
it seems like you really enjoy the collectiveness of basketball. Is there one particular person? I'm just interested in like the way that you've watched basketball throughout the years and like the archetype of player that you enjoy watching. Like for me, I think on the Celtics roster, I probably enjoy watching Jalen the most, not necessarily because of his play style, but because of his mentality. I really like how he's a quick decision maker when he gets the ball and on the perimeter. He doesn't dance too much. He's like straight line drives. And then the way that he handles himself in the media and just like the joy that he plays with, like he's the type of guy that I've kind of enjoyed rooting for throughout the years. Is there a proto? You don't even have to name a Celtics player, but is there a type of player that you enjoy watching the most when you watch games?
One that play makes. So the ability to take what the defense gives them. Basically, because I think I tweeted this before with the Celtics or whatever. Anytime there's a double team, the ball should come out, and if they do that, they might, they can potentially break the lead. There should never be a case where you have to put up a shot against a double team. But I mean, there are indications of that. It's like if you walk the ball up, then you're going to get put into a little short clock situation. Then they throw, that's the Miami thing. Miami is like, they wait for you. If you walk it up in Miami and you get under 5 seconds, they throw a double team and you really can't. That's how they would beat us. But if you go into, like when you play Miami and you get them, and they throw a double team at 8 seconds, then there's at least 3 passes that can be made and you get a wide open shot. So the ability to assess and be selfless, because it sucks to get double teamed. I mean, that means that I'm not going to get to shoot. Everybody wants to shoot. But if you, like you say, if you get in your offense early and they double team you early and you swing, the ball can get back to you without the double team and you can get your points there. But if you try to beat your head over the top doing it a certain way, then you lose. And that goes back to the social media and the expert narrative, where they want the Celtics to be all JT, all JB all the time, and they want the Celtics to not do well, and so they can say, oh well, see, they keep getting there and they keep not doing anything. But I mean, Wick said it. Wick said it at the beginning. He said, "We're not doing this again. We're not bringing back the same team." And that meant mindset as well as player and personnel. So, if we lost some great players and we gained some great players, but the best thing we gained was mindset. You know, once JT came out and they had that meeting and he said, "We got 6 starters. We don't care about whatever. We just care about winning banner 18. If they can survive the next 3 or 4 weeks of listening to the talking heads come out there and say, oh, well, that doesn't look really good, but you keep winning and you win 8 more games, then it's fine." I mean, that's I think that's their last card, is to poison the well and make the Celtics go unselfish. Make them go selfish, and that's the only thing that can short circuit them.
Yeah, I like that point. You're a few weeks away from the Celtics have the last laugh, no matter what. Like the Celtics will have the last laugh if this works out the way that we hope in the next couple of weeks here. But Richard, before we get you out of here, we have a couple of questions from our fans and on our Discord page. So we want to get to a few of those here. We got about 2 or 3 different questions that we're gonna pick and choose here. So I'll go first, and then Greg will do one, and then we'll get you out of here with one more. But let's start with this question that we have here. So let's say I'm gonna read this here. Derrick comes out to you and asks, what could I do differently to unlock our clutch offense? What would you suggest, Richard?
Well, the clutch offense, it's more of a collective. I mean, we're talking in the last 5 minutes, and the game is close. I mean, the first thing is in the last 5 minutes, don't make the game close. I mean, that's a good one. But then the second one is just to get the offense quicker. Like you said, if you have more time, then you can have different options, whatever. So I mean, the thing that short circuits them at the end is if they walk the ball up and then they have less than 5 seconds to do something, and they're not already in an action. I mean, if the action's already in place and it's 5 seconds, you can do a bunch of things and get a bucket. But if you just have to start an action 5 seconds or less, then it's not.
This was kind of your double team point. This is the only way you can end up in a bad double team you can't get out of is if you wait too long, and then all of a sudden you have no other choice, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because that obviously is a huge talking point. Anytime the Celtics are up 10 with 5 minutes left, it's like the worst place to be in, because they just walk the ball up the court. Inevitably, they do. You'd almost prefer them to be down 2 with 5 minutes left if you had to pick between those two, because they still run their offense when it's a closer game. But when they get into the let's roll the ball out and let's try and waste 6 seconds on the clock before somebody comes up and picks up the ball, that's when it just becomes painstaking to watch. But yeah, I think, to answer that question, Will, I would love to see them feature Derrick more, just as they do throughout the game. I don't think their clutch time offense should be different from the way that they play basketball throughout the game. I think there are moments where you want to reduce the risk of a potential turnover. And I think the less passes obviously does that. But we know that the Celtics team going up against a set defense, if you ISO Tatum at the top of the key for 18 seconds against a set defense, help is going to show, and it's just a lot more difficult to get a good quality shot off. Okay, Richard, next question. This one is from Nomit, Nommit. He says, what advice would you give young fathers wanting to introduce basketball to their kids?
Well, just be perceptive, and Derrick played all sports, so we gave him a ball, and so he just played. And then you just kind of watch them gravitate, because sometimes they'll like it. I mean, you can't force it on them. I mean, if basketball is your favorite, then sometimes the kid will pick up on that, and they'll want to play. But just be encouraging. Just don't look at it like, oh, how do I get them? Just enjoy the ride. There's so many different memories and experiences that you go through when you're playing basketball. I mean, it's a team sport. You get to meet other families. You develop friendships and stuff. Those are the most important. I mean, because you never know what you have. I mean, in youth basketball and stuff, Derrick wasn't always the number one guy or whatever. So I mean, it's like, oh, mom, there's like some people like on Twitter, like, my son's doing all these amazing things, and it's like, my son just played. So so you can't necessarily predict what's going to happen. But if they do like the sport, get them training and fundamentals. Don't necessarily look to go the AAU route. I mean, because it's nice, you wear a uniform and you go play a bunch of games, but are you really improving your game? And that's where fundamentals come in. So if you have good fundamentals, you have good form on your shot, you develop basketball IQ, that'll take you farther than playing on this elite eight 8U basketball team where you're playing 7 or 8 games on a weekend.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. It's a great answer right there. And so, Greg's about to be a father himself here, though. So I think, even though that wasn't from Greg, that also, I'm glad, Greg, you took that question in the Discord. I left that for you on purpose for you to ask.
No,
that
I was reading you. I was reading you. I understood what you wanted me to do.
We got that telepathy. We got that down. So I appreciate that. But we'll get you out of here with one last question here. Richard, this is also from our Discord. What was the top Celtic game that you went to in person this season?
Oh, this season? So I mean the most recent one. I mean, let's see. that was pretty good. I mean, just for excitement. I mean, I like the first Denver game. So we were actually there. That was a pretty good weekend. So other than the game, but it was a hard fought game. It was back and forth. This is back when they were calling fouls and everything, and it was like 102, 100.
Isn't it funny? There's the before and after for the season now. Before when they were calling fouls, after when they stopped.
I mean, it was good. I mean, they had a shot to win or tie at the end. Or, in the last couple of minutes, they had some shots that didn't go down. I mean, Derrick had a couple of threes. I thought that he had made one. And I thought he was going to make another one, but it didn't turn out that way. And they played defense on I mean, that last 2 minutes, I don't think hardly anybody scored. I mean, I think Gordon had a bucket or something, but other than that, none of the name players, Jokic, Murray, Tatum, Brown, none of them scored. So both teams played hard, and it was a good game to watch, good game to gauge where you are, and then make a decision on how you want to do at the end of the game.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Now, hopefully we have a lot more exciting games coming up here in these next couple of weeks. Tuesday night will be game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Richard, I assume you're going to be in the building for that one, correct?
No, actually, we're going back. So had they played Sunday, we would have been Sunday, but we have to head back. So we'll be missing that one. So hopefully they do well, and they'll be in another trip where we come back out.
All right. Well, we'll have to make sure that we extend the series, make sure we get the Whites back in Boston here for later games in the Eastern Conference Finals and into what we hope will be an NBA Finals run. Richard, we appreciate your time this morning. That's going to do it for this episode of Green with Envy. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning in and rocking with us. We'll be back with more. We'll have an episode dropping Sunday, either Sunday, Monday morning, previewing what we will then know who our opponent is for the Eastern Conference Finals. So we will get you guys all set up and ready to rock come Tuesday night. I'm your boy, Will Weir. This is Greg Manakis. This has been another episode of Green with Envy. And we'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Thanks, Will and Greg.